there's something almost nobody talks about. The reason you struggle with money isn't usually about your income. It isn't about your intelligence or your work ethic. It's about a decision you made when you were too young to even realize you were making it. A single belief about money that was planted so deep in your mind that you stopped seeing it as a belief. You see it as reality. Most people trace their money problems backward to the wrong place. They look at their current job, their current spending habits, their current decisions, but that's surface. The real damage happened years before that. It happened in a moment you probably can't even remember clearly. Machiavelli understood something that most people refuse to see. He said that the foundation of every man's power is built or destroyed in the space between childhood and his first real decision. Not because childhood determines your fate, but because it shapes how you interpret power itself, and money is power. So here's the uncomfortable part. Whatever relationship you have with money right now, whatever fear or obsession or numbness surrounds it, almost certainly has roots you haven't examined. And until you do, no amount of strategy or discipline will fix the underlying problem. Let me be clear about what I mean. The wound and the pattern. Most people experienced one of a few scenarios growing up. Maybe money was completely absent. Your parents fought about it. The lights almost got shut off. There was never enough. You learned early that money was something to fear, something that could vanish, something that made adults angry and desperate. Or the opposite happened. Money was present, but conditional. You had to earn it. It was withheld as punishment. It was used as control. You learned that money was a tool for power over you, not power for you. Or maybe there was silence. Nobody talked about money at all. It was the thing people didn't discuss, so you grew up with no framework, no language, no understanding of how it actually worked. Just a vague sense that it was complicated, that you weren't smart enough to understand it, that other people had figured out something you hadn't. Here's what each of these creates. The person who grew up with scarcity often becomes obsessed with accumulation. They hoard money. They can't spend it without guilt. They can't enjoy it, because deep down, they're still that child who watched it disappear. And that fear never actually leaves. It just gets older. Think about it. This person makes decent money now, but every purchase feels dangerous. Every dip in their account feels like an emergency. They save aggressively, but not strategically. They save from fear, not from vision. And because they're operating from fear, they make fearful decisions. They avoid investment. They choose safety over leverage. They build a life that looks secure from the outside, but feels fragile from the inside. The tragedy is, they're making the right decision for the wrong reason. Saving is good, but saving while convinced that money will disappear anyway is like building a fortress you believe will be destroyed. You're spending energy protecting something you don't actually believe you can keep. The person who experienced money as a control mechanism often becomes either completely reckless with it, spending to reclaim agency, or they become rigidly controlled by it, recreating the punishment cycle they escaped. They're either running from the cage or trapped in a new version of it. This person has learned that money equals power over them, so they either rebel against it completely or submit to it absolutely. There's no middle ground, because the middle ground feels like surrender. If they rebel, they spend recklessly. They sabotage stability. They make decisions that feel free in the moment but create chaos later. They interpret the chaos as proof that they're right to avoid money, right to distrust systems, right to stay in rebellion. They don't see that they're creating the very chaos they're rebelling against. If they submit, they become hyper-controlled. Every financial decision is filtered through anxiety. They create rules so rigid they suffocate their own life. They tell themselves they're being responsible when they're actually just recreating the control they experienced. Different master, same prison. The person raised in silence becomes paralyzed by decisions. Every financial choice feels like a test they might fail, so they make no choices at all. They drift. They let circumstance decide. And they tell themselves they're being cautious when they're actually just being controlled by fear they can't even name. This person never learned the language of money. So money feels like someone else's domain. They outsource decisions to advisors they don't trust. to partners who may not have their interests at heart, to circumstances completely outside their control. And then they wonder why they feel powerless. The tragic part is the silence itself becomes self-perpetuating. The more you avoid learning about money, the more complicated it seems. The more complicated it seems, the more you avoid it. 5 years pass, 10 years pass, and you're still in the same place, still believing you're not smart enough, still waiting for someone else to figure it out. This looks like a man in his 40s who still doesn't know how his own retirement account works. He has a 401k, but he doesn't understand the fund options. He just puts money in and hopes for the best. His wife handles the mortgage decisions. His advisor makes the investment calls. He's technically grown older but not wiser. He's just become more comfortable being ignorant. And then something happens. His marriage ends, or his advisor makes a terrible decision, or his job changes. Suddenly the decisions he outsourced become his problem, and he's not ready. He's never had to be ready. Now at 45, he's starting from zero in financial literacy. His peers have spent 20 years learning. He's spent 20 years avoiding. The gap isn't just in money. It's in understanding. It's in confidence. It's in identity. None of these people realize something fundamental. Their money behavior isn't actually about money. It's about survival. It's about control. It's about proving something or protecting something they decided was threatened years ago. Machiavelli observed this in the men he studied. He said that the most dangerous rulers were often those who had experienced deprivation early, not because deprivation taught them wisdom, but because it taught them to see threats everywhere, even when none existed. The same thing happens with money. A man raised in scarcity sees economic threats everywhere. A market correction feels like collapse. A necessary business expense feels like waste. A friend's success feels like a reminder of his failure. He's not actually responding to reality. He's responding to ghosts. A man who experienced control sees power grabs everywhere. He interprets advice as manipulation. He sees obligation in generosity. He reads judgment in questions. He's not actually protecting himself. He's fighting a battle that ended years ago. A man raised in silence sees complexity everywhere. He assumes others understand what he doesn't. He interprets his ignorance as permanent rather than temporary. He mistakes unfamiliarity with incapability. None of these interpretations are based on current reality. They're all based on childhood conclusions that have never been updated. Now here's something that makes this even more dangerous. The cost of these wounds doesn't stay the same. It compounds. The man who doesn't invest in his 20s loses decades of compound growth. If he had invested $10,000 at age 25 at a modest 7% return, by age 65 he'd have $214,000. But because of his scarcity wound, he invested nothing. Now at 55, he's just starting. That same $10,000 now has only 10 years to grow. It becomes $20,000. The cost of delay isn't linear, it's exponential, but it's worse than just the money math. The psychological cost also compounds. The longer you stay in the wound pattern, the more you build an identity around it. 5 years of small decisions creates a habit. 10 years creates a pattern. 20 years creates an identity. A man who doesn't invest for 20 years doesn't just have less money. He's become the kind of person who doesn't invest. He's proven it to himself. He's built evidence. Every time he thinks about investing, his brain recalls all the years he didn't. He's built a self-image of someone who doesn't do that. Now changing feels even harder because he's not just changing behavior. He's contradicting 20 years of identity. This is why delay is so expensive. Not just in dollars, in identity, in who you've allowed yourself to become. Identity, in who you've allowed yourself to become. The invisible contract. Here's what's really happening. When you were young, you made a silent contract with yourself about what money meant. You didn't do this consciously, but you did it. And that contract is running your financial life right now without your permission. If you grew up poor, your contract probably sounds something like this. Money is dangerous. If I get it, I'll lose it. So I'll either chase it desperately or reject it completely. Both strategies keep me safe from disappointment. If you grew up controlled, it sounds like money is power over me. The only way to be free is to either dominate through money or refuse to play the game at all. If you grew up in silence, it sounds like money is too complicated for people like me. I'll just survive and hope someone else handles it. And here's the critical part. That contract is self-fulfilling. You make decisions that prove it's true. The person carrying the scarcity contract avoids investment, so they never build wealth. So they remain in scarcity. They interpret this as proof that money disappears, not as proof that they're unconsciously sabotaging themselves. Watch this person carefully. They might earn a six-figure income, but they'll tell you they can't afford to invest. They'll tell you the market is rigged. They'll tell you that people who are wealthy just got lucky. All of these stories keep the contract intact. Then one day they lose their job, and suddenly they're in genuine scarcity, and they feel almost relieved, because the thing they always feared finally happened. The contract was right, and they can stop fighting it now. That's how invisible contracts work. They create self-fulfilling prophecies. The person carrying the control contract sabotages stability. They make reckless decisions to prove they're free, then experience chaos, then interpret it as proof that freedom is dangerous. They recreate the prison they escaped. This person might build a business, but the moment it requires structure, they sabotage it. Because structure feels like control, so they create chaos instead. They tell themselves they're being creative or unconventional, but what they're actually doing is recreating the powerlessness they experienced. At least in the chaos, they're choosing the chaos. At least they're not being controlled by someone else. The person carrying the silence contract stays ignorant by choice. They don't learn about money because learning feels like admitting they should have known already. So they stay stuck in avoidance, interpreting it as protection. This person might inherit money, but they'll let it sit in a checking account. They might have questions about investing, but they won't ask them, because asking feels like admitting they don't know. And not knowing feels safer than knowing and making a mistake. Do you see what's happening? Your childhood money trauma isn't determining your future, because your future is determined by the decisions you make right now. But it is shaping which decisions you make. It's limiting your options without you realizing it's happening. The cost of the wound. This is where most people stop thinking about it. They recognize the pattern, and then they either blame their parents or they try to willpower their way past it. But willpower doesn't work because the wound isn't rational. The real cost of childhood money trauma is subtler and more expensive than just poor decisions. It's identity. You've built an entire sense of yourself around that contract. You see yourself as the kind of person who struggles with money, or the kind of person who is bad with decisions, or the kind of person who will never understand this. That identity is the real prison, because you can change your behavior and still feel like a fraud. You can make more money and still feel poor. You can build wealth and still feel like it's temporary, like you're one mistake away from collapse. The external circumstances change, but the internal story doesn't. Here's what this actually looks like in real life. A man grows up in poverty. His parents fight about money constantly. He watches his mother cry over bills. He makes a decision. He will never live like this. He will build wealth. He will escape. Years pass. He works hard. He becomes successful. He earns six figures. He should feel relief. He should feel safe. But he doesn't, because internally, he's still that boy watching his mother cry. He's still afraid. The money could disappear. There could be an emergency. The system could collapse. So he can't relax. He can't enjoy what he's built. He can't invest, because investing feels like gambling with money he needs to keep. So he stays on a treadmill. He earns well, but he spends less and less, trying to build a buffer that will never feel big enough. He has money, but no freedom. He escaped poverty, but not the poverty mindset. Watch what happens next. He reaches his 50s. He's accumulated some savings through sheer discipline, but because he never invested, he never let his money compound. His peers who took calculated risks 30 years ago, they built seven-figure portfolios. He built a six-figure savings account that barely keeps pace with inflation. Now he faces a choice. He can finally invest, but the voice in his head gets louder. You're too old. You should have done this earlier. It's too late. So he doesn't. He stays safe. He stays small. When he reaches 65, retirement feels terrifying. The buffer he built feels like it could disappear tomorrow. He can't fully retire. He can't travel. He can't relax into his own life because the child's fear never left. It just aged. That's the cost. That's what the wound actually does. It doesn't just steal your money. It steals your time. It steals your freedom. It steals your peace. The most painful part? He did escape poverty, but poverty never escaped him. Or consider a different man. He grows up with money, but it's conditional. His father uses it as control. Do well in school. You get your allowance. Disappoint him. It's withheld. Money becomes a tool of punishment and approval. As an adult, this man has complicated relationships with money and success. If he makes money, he feels controlled by the need to keep earning. If he spends it, he feels guilty, like he's wasting something that might be taken away. If someone offers him help, he's suspicious. Is this genuine, or are they trying to control him? So he sabotages. He makes decisions that undermine his own success, because at least then he's in control of the destruction. At least then he's not waiting for someone else to take it away. This looks like a man who builds a six-figure business, but then undermines it right when it's about to scale. He hires people, then doesn't trust them. He invests in growth, then pulls back. He tells himself he's being cautious. But what he's really doing is recreating the helplessness he experienced. At least, if the business fails, he failed it. He wasn't abandoned by it. Or, it looks like a man who sabotages relationships with people who could help him. An investor offers capital. He finds reasons to distrust them. A mentor offers guidance. He interprets it as control. A partner offers support. He reads manipulation into it. His wound is so efficient at protecting itself that it destroys the very opportunities that could free him from the wound. That's the cost. Machiavelli understood that men don't change because they should. They change because they become a different person. Identity shifts first, behavior follows. But most people try to force it the other way. They try to think their way into new behavior. They try to discipline their way into new identity. It doesn't work, not permanently, because every time they succeed with a new behavior, they sabotage it. Because success triggers the old story. I don't deserve this. This won't last. I'll lose it all. I'm a fraud. The sabotage feels like it comes from nowhere, but it's actually coming from the wound. The wound is defending itself. The pattern inversion. Here's where this becomes strategic. Most people who suffer childhood money trauma fall into one of two traps. They either become obsessed with money, trying to prove they'll never be in scarcity again, or they become indifferent to it, trying to prove it doesn't control them anymore. Both are still controlled by the wound. The person obsessed with money is still running from the child's fear. The person indifferent to money is still rebelling against the child's powerlessness. Neither one is actually free. Real freedom is different. It's indifference born of security, not indifference born of avoidance. Let me explain the distinction because it matters. The person who is truly secure with money doesn't think about it constantly. They don't obsess over gains or panic over losses because their identity doesn't depend on it. They've separated their worth from their net worth. They've separated their safety from their bank account. They can lose money and still feel okay because their okayness doesn't come from the money. It comes from something deeper, from understanding, from confidence in their ability to earn it back, from knowing that money is a tool, not a reflection of their value. That's the shift that changes everything. When you can look at money and see it as a tool instead of a threat or a salvation, everything becomes possible. You can invest without panic. You can spend without guilt. You can earn without desperation. You can lose without collapse. But you can't reach that state by denying the wound. You have to go through it. Here's what that process looks like. First, you name it. Not vaguely, specifically. What exactly happened? What did you decide about money as a result? Write it down. Make it real. Make it external instead of letting it stay hidden in your behavior. Don't say, "My family was poor." Say, "I watched my mother choose between paying rent and buying food. I decided that money was the difference between safety and danger." Don't say, "My father controlled money." Say, "My allowance was withheld when I disappointed him. I decided that money was a tool for punishment and approval." Don't say, "Nobody talked about money." Say, "Every time I asked about money, the conversation ended. I decided that money was something people hid, which meant I wasn't supposed to understand it." Specificity matters, because vague wounds stay vague, and vague wounds stay hidden in your behavior. Then you grieve it. That child experienced something real. That interpretation made sense given what they knew. That strategy protected them at the time, but it's keeping you small now. Acknowledge both truths at once. The grief isn't self-pity, it's recognition. This happened, it shaped me, and now I get to decide if it still does. Then you separate. You are not that child. You have information they didn't have. You have agency they didn't have. You have options they didn't have. State that clearly to yourself. The child believed money was dangerous because their parents were desperate. The adult can see that desperation and danger are different things. The child couldn't work. The adult can. The child couldn't save. The adult can. Finally, you practice new behavior from the adult perspective, not to prove anything, but to build new neural pathways, new patterns, new defaults. The person who grew up in scarcity practices abundance thinking, not by forcing gratitude, but by making one financial decision from a position of security instead of fear. Instead of, "I can't afford this investment. What if I lose it?" They ask, "What if I don't invest? What if I stay small forever?" The first question comes from fear. The second question comes from strategy. Same situation, different lens. The person who experienced control practices agency, not by spending recklessly, but by making one intentional choice about money that feels genuinely chosen. Instead of, "I can't spend this because it feels like losing control," or "I'm going to spend this to prove I'm free." They ask, "What do I actually want? And can I afford that?" That's a decision made from the adult, not a reaction to the child. The person raised in silence practices learning, not by studying frantically, but by asking one question about money and actually listening to the answer. Instead of avoiding the topic, they ask, "I don't understand how this works. Can you explain it?" And then they actually listen. Small decisions, repeated, until they compound into a new identity, the real game. Here's what most people miss. Your childhood money trauma isn't a flaw you have to overcome. It's information. It's actually a message about how you think under pressure. It's a signal about what you value. It's data about your psychology, and once you understand it that way, you can use it. The person who fears scarcity has learned to see threats clearly. They're paranoid about money in ways that actually serve them well if they redirect that paranoia towards strategy instead of panic. Instead of, "Money will disappear," they can ask, "How do I build systems that protect money when threats appear?" That paranoia becomes strategic awareness. And strategic awareness is valuable. The person who experienced control has learned to see power dynamics clearly. They understand how money creates leverage and dependency. That's valuable insight if they stop rebelling against it and start using it. Instead of, "I won't play the money game," they can ask, "How do I play this game on my own terms?" That rebellious energy becomes strategic independence. The person raised in silence has learned to be careful about assumptions. They question explanations that seem simple. That's valuable intellectual discipline if they channel it toward understanding instead of avoidance. Instead of, "This is too complicated," they can ask, "What am I not understanding, and how do I learn it?" That caution becomes investigative thinking. Machiavelli said that every wound contains the seed of strategic advantage. The person who has suffered teaches you what not to fear. The person who has been controlled teaches you how control actually works. The person who has been lost teaches you how to navigate when you have no map. The question isn't how to erase the wound, it's how to let it inform your strategy without letting it limit your choices. The inversion. So here's the move that actually changes things. You stop fighting the money wound and you start studying it. You recognize that whatever your relationship with money is right now, it's serving a purpose. It's protecting you from something. It's proving something. It's achieving something for your younger self. But your younger self isn't making decisions anymore. The adult version of you is in charge now. And the adult has different goals. The adult wants freedom. The adult wants agency. The adult wants to build something instead of survive something. So you ask yourself a different question. Not, how do I fix my relationship with money? But, what would a person who wasn't carrying this wound actually do right now? And then you do that thing just once. You make one decision about money that isn't filtered through the trauma. You invest something, you spend something, you learn something, you risk something. You do it because the adult version of you chose it, not because you're punishing yourself or proving something. And then you do it again and again until the new pattern becomes normal. This is how identity actually changes. Not through understanding, through repetition, not through insight, through practice. The person who was raised in scarcity who makes one investment is testing whether abundance is possible. The person who experienced control who makes one intentional purchase is testing whether they can be free. The person raised in silence who asks one question is testing whether understanding is possible. Small tests, repeated until you have evidence that the new story is true. The cost of staying still. Now here's the part that matters. You know what happens if you don't do this work? You stay exactly where you are. You keep making the same financial decisions from the same wounded place. You keep interpreting circumstances through the same lens. You keep proving the same old story. And one day you realize years have passed, and you're still dealing with the same money problems, still experiencing the same fears, still running from the same demons. The only difference is you're older, and you have fewer options than you used to. Think about it. A man in his 20s with a scarcity wound can still recover. He has time. He has earning potential. He can build. But a man in his 50s with the same wound? He spent 30 years making small, fearful decisions. 30 years of not investing. 30 years of not taking calculated risks. 30 years of staying small. The math is brutal. Compound growth works in reverse too. Or consider the person raised in silence. In their 20s, they can still learn. But by their 40s, they've spent 20 years outsourcing financial decisions to people who may not have their interests at heart. They've built a life on a foundation they didn't design, and now changing it feels impossible. That's the real cost of delay. It's not just the money you didn't make. It's the freedom you didn't build. It's the agency you didn't exercise. It's the person you didn't become. Machiavelli understood that delay is a form of choice. The moment you stop climbing is the moment you start falling. There's no neutral ground. There's no safety in stillness. Every year you stay in the wounded pattern, you're cementing it deeper. You're building a life that proves the old story. You're becoming someone who can't change because you've spent so long proving that you won't. And the saddest part? You'll tell yourself stories about why you can't. I'm too old. I don't have enough money. It's too complicated. The system is rigged. All of those stories are coming from the wound. The wound is defending itself. The wound is keeping you safe. But safe from what? From the possibility of freedom, from the risk of growth, from the discomfort of becoming someone new. The wound feels like protection, but it's actually a prison. The decision. So, if some part of you recognized yourself in what I just described, that recognition matters. It's not an accident. It's information. The wound is real. The pattern is real. But they don't have to control you anymore. All it requires is for you to become a different person. Not instantly. Not perfectly. But deliberately, one decision at a time. The adult version of you is waiting for you to finally step into that role. The adult who can look at money clearly. The adult who can make decisions from strength instead of fear. The adult who can build something instead of just survive. That person is already inside you. You just have to let them make decisions. So ask yourself, what's one decision about money that you would make if you weren't carrying this wound? What's one choice that would require you to act like the adult instead of reacting like the child? Do that, just once, and then tomorrow, do it again. Not because you have to fix yourself, but because you're finally deciding to become yourself. That's where real change starts. If this shifted the way you see yourself even a little, then don't stop here. Because what you've heard in this video is only the surface. There are deeper layers to psychology, influence, and wealth that simply can't be explored fully in one video. Not because they don't exist, but because most people aren't ready to hear them. That's why most stay average. If you're not one of them, then subscribe, because every video here is designed to sharpen your mindset, increase your value, and separate you from the crowd. No fluff, no noise, just strategy. Most people will watch this and move on. A few will stay and change. Decide which one you are. This and move on. A few will stay and change. Decide which one you are.